You just heard from the head of United Kingdom, the head of the United States, speaking on the Syria matter. And for more on this, we cross over to our correspondent, Daniel Ryntjes. He's over in Washington, D.C. Hello, Daniel. Good to have you on. So what more can you tell us about the joint press conference that just happened over at the White House by these two leaders? Did they mention any more about the international conference that Cameron has spoken to Putin about, maybe potentially happening later this month, to move on with this process?
Right. Yeah, right. So Secretary of State Kerry went to Moscow and spoke to President Vladimir Putin. Then we've had last week David Cameron going to speak to Vladimir Putin about Syria and the potential for a conference which will bring together both sides in the Syrian conflict for a potential solution. But you have the British and the Americans in this press conference standing by their original policy position, which is to see the end of President Assad, and at the same time wanting to encourage some kind of reciprocation process. That's why I think Vladimir Putin's position is absolutely crucial at this time, and why all of the world's politicians who are interested in this are interested in talking to him. So though obviously the willingness of both sides to come together is the most crucial thing, yet Vladimir Putin appears to be the linchpin which could potentially put this together, given the fact that neither the Americans nor the British seem to be climbing down from their support for the idea of an end to the Assad regime and more support for the Syrian rebels. So it's a difficult position diplomatically to be in at the moment, trying on the one hand to support more efforts by the Syrian rebels, and on the other to support some kind of a peaceful solution.
Also, Daniel, they're speaking about other issues such as trade and in preparation for G8 and among other things. If you can, did they mention anything else? If you can give us a summary on those topics.
Well, yes. So David Cameron is hosting the G8 in Northern Ireland, and one of the key topics that he wants to push forward is better trade deals, more open trade. And one of the big trade deals that's potentially on the table in the next few months and years is this EU-US trade deal. The only problem for him politically is now that some senior members of his own party, the Conservative Party in the UK, are saying they don't even want to be in the EU at this stage. So David Cameron himself is in a very politically tricky position, but at the same time, in this press conference, he has very strongly endorsed the idea of continuing ahead with this, and for the British to take a lead role in negotiating these trade talks. And President Obama acknowledging David Cameron's position, saying it seems entirely reasonable for the UK to go into talks renegotiating the EU and its basic bargain with the member countries, and saying that's a good idea for the UK to stay in the game, whilst even some of his own political colleagues are saying on David Cameron's side they're not even sure that that's worth doing. So you have some tricky politics to do with this trade deal. You have some tricky politics ahead at the G8, not least the fact that as we come out of this financial crisis, these countries have to somehow show a united and coordinated front and find their own balance between fiscal responsibility and trying to inject a little bit of life into their own economies. So there's plenty to talk about here. I think David Cameron has come to Washington to try to ensure that the G8 is a success for him.
Thank you very much for your report. Our correspondent over in Washington, D.C., Daniel Ryntjes.